just relaxed and paying attention.
Oh, yes, 1966, 67, 68. Welcome back to 21st Century Radio with our guest, Merrell Fankhauser. His psychedelic and surf music we talked about earlier, and we've just received, my producer somehow has got hold of a copy of what Eclectia album cover looks like. Are you there, Merrell?
Eclectia, yes.
Eclectia.
She found it?
Yes, she found it. And here I'm looking right in the middle. And who is it? There's Jimi. Jimi Hendrix. Right above that. There are some other folks there that are familiar to me, but I just can't remember their names. That's a problem us old men get.
Yeah, that's true.
And who is the guy at the very top who's wearing an Egyptian... I've forgotten the name of that the thing.
Oh, yeah, people have asked me about him. That was Rosh Hashan, the soprano jazz sax guy.
Yeah, well, I'm going to hold this up to the microphone. We've been Facebook. She found it on our Facebook page. She posted it on 21st Century Radio just now.
Oh, great.
And so... but it's just wonderful to see exactly how it mocks, in a way, the album of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Exactly. And do you see me up in the left-hand corner up there?
You got a pair of black eyeglasses on?
Yeah, I've got the sunglasses on. I'm in my blue robe that I wore on the Return to Mu album cover, and Neil Young is just above me, and then David Bowie is just down to the left a little bit.
I wonder how Neil Young is now.
You know, his son was up here in Atascadero for quite a while, and he used to come and visit him. And I know several people that have bumped into him, but haven't heard much about him in the last few years.
Yeah, well, I know that... Linda Moulton Howe is in this?
Yeah.
Whoa, you know Linda Moulton Howe?
I've talked to her before through Joanna Summerscales.
Well, I'll be.
And there's some other people there that I've talked to, also Stanton Friedman and some other people.
Laura says there's Betty and Barney Hill here. Where are you?
People are calling me and emailing me all the time, and they're trying to say, now, who is this person,
Yes,
you know? And I'm holding the cover because I have some of the albums here, and I'm trying to, find out which person they're looking at to try to tell them. But inside the CD, there's a map of all of the people with their names.
Oh. So one of these days we're going to have to try to get that map interpretation.
Yeah, if you can order the CD off of the internet, and I only have a few left. I sent all the ones that the company sent me out to radio to get it played.
Well,
and,
I'll ask my producer to order one then, because this is something that really enlivens me, because it's good to see all of these people that know about the truth of and can live with these kind of beings, because there's a lot of fear that our government's trying to put into the possibility of aliens. But you and I know that there are at least 56 types of these other beings, probably many, many more than that. And that basically they're very peaceful. They are looking forward to, they know the kind of problems we are about to have with our planet, and they certainly would like to help us, but they would like to see us try to help ourselves first.
Exactly.
We can't depend on them for they're not going to do anything unless we show that we have growing up. And this past 4 years has shown that we haven't. So I'm pretty fearful of that, because I was always looking forward to perhaps, because of course they can look at us, they can read our aura, they know exactly what we're thinking. They're much more advanced than we are, and they're much more peaceful than we are. But our government's not necessarily going to play that number. It looks like
Right.
they're going to do what they have done with trying to keep it all secret all over again. Geez,
Yeah.
oh, what a beautiful piece, though. Gosh, oh, Rudy, we left we left everybody hanging up on your UFO story, and we need to get to that.
Yeah, after we had that great sighting at the top of Haleakala Crater on Maui, it was the most profound UFO sighting I ever had, and it lasted, like I said, it had to be over 3 or almost 4 minutes, and we drove down to our house in Haiku on Maui. Immediately I got that feeling, and I turned on the old reel-to-reel tape recorder. This was in 1974, and my song, Calling from a Star, just came out.
Whoa.
Completely, I didn't even know where my fingers were going on the guitar, and that happens all the time. And the words, the melody, everything just came out, and everybody in the room, the rest of the band went, oh, my God. Well, we had the demo of it, but actually I didn't get in a studio till 1977, 3 years later, to record it, and I had Steve Miller's drummer, great drummer, Gary Malabar, playing drums on it, and I had Peter Noon from Herman's Hermits come in and sing with me on the choruses. And it ended up coming out on a 45 vinyl record and got a lot of radio play, and then a few years later it came out on an album. And, it's just one of those things where, a song will just write itself. And I met John Lennon once at Harry Nilsson's house. Harry and I were longtime friends, and we had a short conversation about songwriting. And he said, isn't it odd where songs come from? Mm-hmm. And he said, you never know when one is going to come through, and if something interrupts you or somebody says something to you, it can go away.
Yeah.
And he said he called it automatic writing, and it gave me shivers, and that still rings a bell with me. And we both said that the best songs are written in 15 minutes. And he said something really funny, Bob. He said, I didn't write any of those songs in the Beatles. And I went, what? He said, my muse gave them to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Harry put me on the spot, and I played my song On Our Way to Hana, which is about seeing a UFO on this beautiful drive on Maui with all these waterfalls out in the jungle, and I saw a silver saucer fly. And that song was another one that just came out like that. But it was a little intimidating playing for John, but he was so kind and gracious and very nice. And that was another experience that I cherish.
Did John tell you about his UFO experience?
We didn't have a chance, but I know about that in New York because there were about 30 people at this party, and there were people trying to talk to him, and he sort of took me off in this alcove.
Good.
We had this conversation because he was impressed after I played this song on my acoustic guitar for the whole group.
But the song Calling from a Star, would you mind if we played that now and then we could talk about it a little bit?
Yes, let's do that.
Let's do that, Courtner.
Up until this moment, I've lived upon the earth, gratefully
Isn't that great? Good job. Good job, Merrell.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites all-time songs, and it got on a lot of radio stations, like I said, all over the world. It was a big hit in Europe and in London, and it was on stations in New York and Ohio and all over, out here and in Hawaii.
So a lot of people, when they first heard it, did they feel they understood what it meant?
Oh yeah, I got so many back then. And it was released in '78. I would get handfuls of letters every week. My agent in Hollywood was saying, "Well, you've got more letters," and a lot of them were just fans, but a lot of them were radio DJs that heard it on some other station and said, "I've got to have one of these." And I was impressed that they all got it.
Well, I got to have one of those too, so we're going to have to get one of those, Courtner.
Well, I'll get you the album that's on.
That would be very kind.
I'll send it to you.
Thank
you.
you.
On a CD.
Look forward to that. Well, we have to get to Lemuria here sooner or later.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to talk about Lemuria or Mu, the lost continent you have been researching for decades. I understand that there have been some interesting recent developments with a National Geographic photographer regarding your findings of pre-Hawaiian ruins in Maui. But first start at the beginning and describe the pyramid and the pillar you found at what else and what else that pointed to in regards to Lemuria, and then bring us up to date. Sorry to make such a long question there, but I've been very interested in this.
Yeah, in 1970, I was living in a suburb of L.A., Woodland Hills, and I was cleaning up the log bin around the fireplace in the rented house, and I found an original copy of Colonel James Churchward's book, The Lost Continent of Mu.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out a name for the band because my band previous, HMS Bounty, we broke up, and my old friend Jeff Cotton was playing with Captain Beefheart's Magic Band, and he left that band and joined me. And when I found this book and we started reading it, and it said that the Hawaiian Islands were the now mountain peaks of the lost continent of Mu. We all just got enthralled by this, and I woke up one morning and I said, "Guys, we got to call the new band Mu." And we did, and we immediately got a record deal with Era Records. We went in the studio, recorded our first album, and then United Artists picked it up in England, and we made some money, and we decided we had to move to Maui. And in 1973, we moved to Maui, and I was just so interested in, I felt like an amateur archaeologist.
Well, you probably were in another incarnation. We've never talked about that, but you know that obviously one of the reasons why you're so good at what you do is because you have done these kind of things before, and that's why I think you're so successful.
Well, that's interesting. I felt like it was my destiny. And so right away, I for some reason, Bob, I was accepted by the older Hawaiians. And they didn't accept many people, they're all skeptical.
Of course.
There is aloha there, but they're very skeptical. And the ones out in the jungle that still lived in cabins and things, I met a few of them, and I played at their parties and things, and they really accepted me. And one older guy, Johnny Kahamoi, He's not with us anymore, but he was in his 80s, and I started telling him about my desire to find ruins from pre-Hawaii and the lost continent of Mu, and his eyes lit up, and he said, "You come over here." He wouldn't talk about it in front of anybody. He said, "Come down to this valley with me. I want to show you something." He took me to this valley in the jungle, and there were these steps that were stone cut, like they'd been cut on a milling machine. You could actually see where it looked like a saw blade had made these steps, and I thought, what is this? Because all the Hawaiian structures are basically lava rocks, that they make walls and stack them up. He said, "You go down there." He said, "I used to play down there as a little kid, but my parents forbid me to go down there. They said it was kapu because the Mu people might get you and take you away." So this legend of Mu is in books there, and it's known since the 1800s. But a lot of the old Hawaiians, they don't want to talk about it. He was afraid still, and he was in his 80s, to go down these steps with me. So I went down there, had this little camera, and I came to this valley, Bob, with this pristine waterfall and these 3 pillars that almost looked like Grecian. They looked like they were machined with these knurled sides, and they had to be, 30 feet tall each, and there was one broken off laying in this pool. And I was getting goosebumps. When I look back at it now, it's almost like I was doing Indiana Jones before the character was written. And they were standing on a cut stone floor, like, next to this waterfall. And I went, this isn't natural. Then I noticed that the same kind of cut stonework went down under this high how bush leading off into the ocean, and I could see about 75 feet out. The stone steps went out, and then you could see where the lava flow, which was several thousand years old, they said, in that spot, went over the steps. So I knew those steps were older than that lava flow. And much, much later, after it kind of got out that these things were there, some scientists and some people from Germany came and carbon dated it. And they said they were over 10,000 years old, those pillars. And I got the first picture that anybody knew about that.
We have to take a break. So let's come back on this when we return. I apologize for that, but that's what happens in the radio world, Merrell. We're with Merrell Fankhauser, his psychedelic and surf music. Some of the songs are appearing in new movies, other achievements and awards, and plus his explorations of Hawaii and searching for the lost continent of Mu, which we are talking about now. This is an extraordinary soul. But in the old days, we would say this is an old soul. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
You're listening to Bob Hieronimus on 21st Century Radio, and I hope you enjoy the show. And this is John Clive, who once had the pleasure of playing John Lennon in Yellow Submarine. I hope you enjoy this from a good friend of Bob Hieronimus. Good night.
There are no bills, there are no fees. Walk through my forest, feel the trees, can smell your sweat, can hear you breathe. Here on this island, your dreams are free.
Welcome back to 21st Century Radio with our guest Merrell Fankhauser, and that was, they want to be a witch doctor there. And the National Geographic photographer, regarding your findings, he was very interested in them. And we were discussing the possible scientific validity of Mu. Would you pick it up from there?
Yes, Bob. There's a place on the desolate side of Maui where under the lava flow, the road leads out there, and then it ends. You can't go any further. And there's this rock trail with these rock walls that go out there. And a surfer and an amateur archaeologist like myself went out there once and found all these ruins. And this was in about, 1975 or 76. And they told me about them. And so I got a group together to go out there and hired people to carry things for us, and we planned to camp out there. But now the Hawaiian people are afraid of this area. They'll go part way out along the beach side and fish, but as soon as it gets dark, they get out of there. So we went way out, and this friend of mine, who I'll call Matt, told me about this large building near this red cinder cone that's out in this lava field that had a cellar underneath. And he said, you have to look at that. Well, it was almost 7 miles out there, and it's not a tropical paradise anymore. You feel like you're on the moon or something, and it gets so hot because those black lava rocks, and the sun absorbs the heat.
Oh, yes.
Well, me and two of the guys that were carrying stuff made it out there, but the rest of the party stopped at one of the little ruined houses that was half under a lava flow several miles back and started setting up camp. They thought I was on a crazy trip. No, we're not going any further. And you got to have good hiking shoes, and it's best to have a hat, and you could get sunstroke out there. But anyhow, we got to this building that my friend told me about, and I swear it was as big as a small drugstore. It had 4-foot thick walls, and it was a definite Hawaiian building, and it had these sacred rocks put in it that he told me about, and octopus lures. And over in the right-hand corner was a hole in the floor. And we went over there, and you could see where people had been making torches out of whatever they could put together and had gone down there. And there was this rickety ladder that we were almost afraid to go down on, and we didn't have a rope, but I braved it, and I went down there with my flashlight. And to my amazement, I found the same kind of stone-cut flooring and walls as I saw over on the other side of the island in the jungle. And my friend Matt called it Lost City Hall. So we went back. We just barely made it back to the campsite. It was a few miles we had to hike after that, and we were exhausted. We ate and made some soup and then tried to sleep. But I understood then why the Hawaiians were afraid of the place. There were the strangest sounds. I don't know if it was the wind blowing through these like weird lava rock sculptures, or what, but it was very scary. I get goosebumps now just thinking about it. And in the morning, when you look out into the lava flow, you could see other walls with this cut stone kind of thing, and like doorways and things that were half buried under the lava. So I got my old trusty camera out and started taking some pictures. And, naive me, I showed them to a guy at the newspaper office in town. And then some people at magazines and things contacted me and wanted copies of the pictures. Well, this was in the 70s. By then, it was about 1978 or 79. And I don't know where this guy from National Geographic saw some of my photographs. And he came to the island. This has been, about 4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, and started asking around. And oddly enough, he found my friend Gopal and Satch that were my equipment carriers on my journey out there. And he said, "Where is this place?" So they took him to the edge of the trail, but they wouldn't go any further. He took the same pictures that I already had taken, and then took them back to National Geographic, and they published some of them. And the area is called the King's Burial Ground, and the stone pathway that goes out there is called the Stone Highway. And interestingly enough, when the Hawaiians came to the islands from Tahiti, they found a white, blonde, and red-haired race living in that area. Mm. And they claim to have built a lot of those buildings and things that are there. Then I was on Coast to Coast once with George Norrie, and I was talking about this. And some Hawaiian people heard about this, and I didn't know if I was going to get in trouble for talking about this or not. But a bunch of young Hawaiians, teenagers and people in their 20s, started emailing me going, "None of my parents or my grandparents have ever told me about this area. What is this?" And then there was a couple vacationing from California there. They emailed me, and the guy and his wife wanted to go out there and see this. And I said, "Well, it's very hot," and it was in the summer time, and I said, "You better have clothing and lots of water and shoes, and don't go too far." Well, he only went out about 3 miles, and he started seeing the ruins, and he took pictures of them. And then he emailed me back and said his wife got heat exhaustion, and he had to practically carry her back to the car and took her to a hospital. But his mind was blown. He said all of those ruins, he didn't make it all the way out to the one with the cellar, but he saw the ones that were the tip of the iceberg, and said they were all there. Well, this guy from National Geographic, and like I said, found my guys that helped me go out there. And when he took all of these pictures, he claimed that he was the first one that found these ruins.
Wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you know it?
In the magazine.
Jeez. Yes.
So that's the story about that. But what Satch told me was that now, if you go out far enough, there's a rickety barbed wire barrier going across the rock trail through the lava flow with a military property sign saying no, do not go beyond this point. So we don't know what that's all about, but you can see Kahalave Island from there. a smaller one of the Hawaiian Islands. And the Navy and the Air Force was doing bomb testing on that island.
Oh, my.
Yeah, they were actually dropping bombs on this ancient island that had ruins on it. It was a small island. And there was only one, like a cattle ranch or something on there, but it's hardly inhabited. But I don't know if it had something to do with that they didn't want you to go further or what. But it's kind of mysterious.
Oh.
But then real quick, I was hiking through Haleakala Crater where Jimi Hendrix and the crew in 1971, I think it was, went through and had a UFO sighting, and I was going down the same trail, and I looked out into that lava flow and saw what looked like a pyramid.
Yeah.
And I hiked out to it, and I really risked my life. I had to jump what looked like bottomless pits, different chasms, to get to it, and there it was. It was a pyramid. I climbed up on the side of it, and with the length of my body, I'm a little over 6 feet, I figured out it was over 40 feet tall, and I got such vertigo that I thought I was going to get sick, so I crawled down off of it and got to a vantage point where I got a picture of it.
Good going.
And there's a picture of that pyramid and those pillars in my book, Calling from a Star, the Merrell Fankhauser story, that's available at Amazon. And the book is sold quite well now, and I get mail from all over the world, and people have sent me at least 100 of the books to sign. But those pictures are in there, and I can email them to you, Bob.
Would you please?
If you want to see them.
Yes, I would. Indeed.
Yeah, I'll email them to Laura, and she can show them to you. But George Norrie loved those pictures, and he even put them on the Coast to Coast website. It was there for a while promoting when I was going to be on that show.
That's fortunate.
So I'm just, amazed that nobody really talks about this until this person from National Geographic that took those pictures.
With that, we got to take our last break. Is this our last break, Dr. Kortner? Okay. And when I come back, I want to ask you about inner Earth and the possibility of life on inner Earth. Would that be okay? Oh, he says it's okay. I'll be right back on 21st Century Radio with Merrell Fankhauser.
Hi, this is Claudette Robinson of Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, and you're listening to 21st Century Radio with Dr. Bob Hieronimus.
Well, knowing how much time we had, I wanted to make sure we got back to Oceans of Intelligence. What would you like to tell us about this song again?
Well, it was inspired by the Tibetan Lama giving me the name Lodru Jantsal, that meant Oceans of Intelligence. And I was inspired to write the song. And you're one of the first radio stations. It's been played a little bit and in Hawaii, but we've been holding it back, till the album comes out. But we are thinking of, sending it to select stations to play. And it's actually a prayer for help from beyond the planet, and that we need this oceans of intelligence now to help us.
Yep, we sure do. And thank heavens for your work, that you've made it a lot easier for some of us in this particular work, because we're always being criticized by it. Just before we left our last break, I noted the situation of the inner earth. I've become more and more interested in the possibility of other life forms living in the inner earth. Do you have any opinions about that, sir?
Yeah, I think there's something to that, because Admiral Byrd talked about seeing strange objects going into an inner earth opening. And in Hawaii, they were always seeing objects coming and going from in the ocean, and even coming out of the crater, even on Haleakala, and going in and out of the ocean. The same as the situation we were talking about, the signals from Malibu, that for years, even going back into the 40s, they were seeing objects going in and out of the ocean along the California coast where Malibu is, and an old Army radio expert that was in the Second World War still delved into ham radio, and he was an expert at range finding. He's the one that picked up those signals that were strange one night on his ham radio, and Michael Luckman instructed him to send them to me, and I put them in 2 songs. Well, come to find out, there's a dome-shaped building with pillars about 3 miles out under the ocean with an opening that they believe UFOs go in and out of. And they've been seeing these objects since the 1940s. And I talked to a Chumash Indian elder that was a tribe that lived here up and down the coast, and he knew all about it. He said, oh, yeah, that building was made by the people that were here before us, and they lived here for over 1,000 years, they claim. And he said when the ocean level was down lower, his tribe used to use that like a pier to fish off of.
Oh.
And so that's on the cover of my Signals from Malibu album, that building. And you can Google it, Malibu Anomaly, and you can see it. They have underwater pictures of it. And James Cameron even wanted to get an ROV, an underwater unmanned sub, and send it into that opening. But I don't know what happened. That expedition got scuttled. But yeah, there's something going on inside the earth that most people don't know about, but I feel like there are people that do know about it.
Well, this is very interesting because a dear friend of mine, his name is Preston Dennett. Have you heard of Preston?
Oh, yes.
And he has a book called Undersea UFO Base, and it shows that just what you're talking about on the front cover as well. Do you have a copy of this book?
Yes, I've read the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'd send this copy if you didn't have one. That's the reason why I brought that up, because I saw the parallels here are extraordinary. We had to go out to Southern California with the Woodstock bus that we recreated, and there were tens of thousands of people there to welcome us, because we're from the East Coast, and I've heard so many times, so many people, what the hell are you doing on the East Coast? You should be over here where all the action is. And it's because I chose karmically to be close to Washington, D.C. in this incarnation, because I served in the military, American military, and died before 1776. And so America means a great deal to me. I gave my life for it at that time. It didn't make it to 1776. It was just so bad. But anyway, the key thing is this is so important. What you're doing has so many important things for people to consider. You know, you're more of you're a genius. It's true, but it seems to me that you are a multiple genius. Now, I don't want to embarrass you or make you feel strange about this, but you can see the patterns here with how you work, what you accomplish, and then how long it takes you to succeed and then re-succeed. That indicates, as I mentioned before, that you are a very old soul. Did I offend you?
Not at all. The Lama told me the same thing, and I'm just thankful, you know, that I get to keep doing this. And like I said at the top of our interview, I feel like it's a gift that's been given to me.
It was in a certain sense, you've had many purposes in this life, and this is one of them.
Right.
And, you know, the fact is by your coming back to them over and over again and lifting them up so other people can see. Because you know that when you talk about this stuff, most people, today it's changing, but most people would look at you and just think, well, that's poor guy. And,
yeah.
You know, he's trying to do something that's just, unfortunately, just going to waste his time. But obviously, fortunately, there are tens of millions now that are moving in that direction, and I believe that is what the beings that are coming, some of these beings coming from all different parts of the universe, they're here to look out for our planet. They know what's about ready to happen and the big changes that could come, and they would like to protect us, but there are laws, and the spiritual laws are, what are we doing? What are we doing to protect ours? Are we doing anything to help? If we're not doing anything to help, then they're not inclined to look for us. They'll work with other people. And you can't fool them. There's no way for us to fool them, because they can read everything about us. They look at our aura, they see our energy field, and they can tell whether you're lying or whatever. Does that sound right to you?
Exactly. Spot on, Bob. I love you, man. If you ever come out here, I want to have you on Tiki Lounge, and we'll just talk for a bit.
That would be great. That would be great. Because there's a lot. When I was there in Southern California, I felt so much at home. I really... it was February 16th, so it wasn't very hot or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
the people are just so open to all of this, and that's what I missed when I come back home. And you can't say the same kind of things to people on the East Coast that you can say on the West Coast, and it's old hat to them.
That's exactly right.
It's nothing new. Again, you're one of those individuals that has lived to see that quality. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you back on, so we could get to talk about this along these lines.
Oh, it was great. I really enjoyed it, and I still can't believe it was almost 7 years ago that we talked last, and I've told people about being on your show and how great it was, you know.
Well, it's vice versa. You know, it's a good thing you can express yourself well. Obviously, when you've read all the Mu books, there are so many Mu books. Second book of The Cosmic Forces of Mu, Cosmic Forces of Mu, The Lost Continent of Mu, Understanding
the Children
Mu,
of Mu. And in Hawaii, there's a book written by a Hawaiian called Children of the Rainbow that talks about how Mu is in the old Hawaiian chants, that they talk about it. But when the Christian missionaries came to the islands, they wanted to erase all of that from the Hawaiians.
We have lost so much along those lines. Unfortunately, Christianity has made some terrible mistakes in destroying knowledge and sacred aspects of other countries. But it's not just the Christians. All the religions do something along these lines when they become fearful that they may not be able to continue to succeed. I think they would continue to succeed if they talked about love and if they talked about trying to work with people that have nothing and bring us together, which is what I believe our president that we have right now is going to do. And I believe he's going to be put through the ringer, but he doesn't care. He's going to do it. Thank you for joining us, Merrell. This has been a heck of a good show.
Amen, and warmest aloha to you,
Thank you,
Bob. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
God bless you. This is 21st Century Radio. Mark, if you want to reach merrellfankhauser.com, merrellfankhauser.com. And also see you next week